In 1995, the very first Toy Story film was released, the first ever computer animated film produced by Pixar and released by Disney. It was the beginning of a franchise that has lasted over 2 decades, adored by millions. With Toy Story 4 now out, we thought it'd be fun to take a look at the entire franchise and discuss some of the wild fan theories that have spawned from it, particularly the dark ones that threaten to taint your childhood forever. So get ready, friends, because here's our list of the top 10 scary Toy Story theories that may be true. And at number 10, Sid's family life. This theory suggests that Sid wasn't just some little psychopath. He was the product of some pretty sad nurturing. There's a few hints in the first film that his parents could be pretty negligent. For starters, he gets that rocket mailed to him. Now back in 1995, getting something mailed to your house wasn't as easy as it is today with Amazon or eBay or whatever online shopping poison you prefer, meaning he would have to have had gotten his parents to order it for him. And for a kid that young, ordering a potentially dangerous rocket ship seems a little careless, especially since they let him run around with it on his own. Sure, he could have gotten it from a friend or something, but there is one other big hint in the film that proves his parents might not have been the best on the block. There's one shot in the film where we see Sid's dad passed out in front of the television with empty cola cans laying on the floor next to him, and a ton of clutter on the floor surrounding the TV. Looks a whole lot like a trope from other shows and movies of alcoholics falling asleep in front of a television, so maybe his dad was an alcoholic? Maybe Sid's life is really a tragedy? It's tough being a 90s kid. Moving on to number 9, socialism. This theory suggests that the Toy Story franchise is one giant metaphor for socialism, which, if you don't know, is a range of economic and social systems characterized by social ownership of the means of production and workers' self-management, as well as the political theories and movements associated with them. Think Soviet Union. Anywho, how does that apply to Toy Story? Well, a redditor by the name of I'm Back Again Bros, which is actually their Reddit name, suggested that the film can be viewed like this. The toys are proletarians, working to serve kids like Andy and Sid, with Woody and Buzz being two different expressions of American imperialism. Woody is a sheriff who initially believed it was a toy-eat-toy kind of world, whereas Buzz is a new generation. The toys rise up and revolt when they are pushed too far, striking against Sid, but eventually returning happily to submit to Andy at the end of the movie. And at number 8, how toys come to life. This theory suggests that the toys don't come to life until a child picks them up. A little weird, right? But think about it. Toys and their packaging are basically lifeless until they have an owner. This has brought up some speculation as to how exactly toys spring to life from their owners. Are they imbued by the child's personality? If so, how is it that they continue to live onwards after the child's, grown up? Are kids just awakening millions and millions and millions of little lives only to discard them when they're older? The implications of this theory are kind of worse than the theory itself, really. And at number 7, John Lasseter. John Lasseter is a name some of you might not be familiar with, and if I'm mispronouncing it, it's fine because he's actually pretty terrible. More on that in a sec. He's an American animator and filmmaker who was the former chief creative officer of Walt Disney Animation Studios, Pixar, and Disney Toon Studios. He had been fired from Disney initially for promoting computer animation, only to join Lucasfilm where he worked on some groundbreaking CGI. He also directed Toy Story and Toy Story 2. Now there's a theory that Toy Story is actually an allegory for Lasseter's time at Disney, in which he tried to introduce digital animation, got the boot, only to come back together with Disney and make everyone happy. That's really adorable until you read more on Lasseter. In 2017, he took a sabbatical from Pixar and Disney due to alleged sexual misconduct towards employees. And in 2018, Disney announced that he'd be leaving the company, with his last Pixar credit being for working on the story of Toy Story 4. So that's a creepy little fact that might ruin your love of Toy Story. Fun stuff. This theory comes from Redditor Small Paul. In it, they suggest that the whole film is a religious experience, with the toys initially believing that Andy is their god, and those that don't accept it are ultimately tossed away. Buzz at the start of the first film notes that he's on a cosmic mission, but when Woody convinces him that he is just a toy, kind of like just being a sack of meat like humans are, Buzz finds himself striving to find meaning in life, just like us. Existential crisis, anybody? Yup. They learn later on in the movies that their relationship with Andy is just temporary, and that there isn't any universal meaning in life. They're just there to please Andy or whoever comes after him. There's no God, no grand purpose. Not even Andy is forever. Atheism, friends. There you go. And at number 5, Andy's face. This theory stretches all the way back to the first Toy Story film. There's a scene in which Andy is celebrating his 6th birthday and his friends come over to his house for a party. Now take a close look at the face of his friends. Like, really take a close look. Yup, they all have the same face. Considering the first movie came out in 1995, it could very well be a product of Pixar attempting to save costs and be creative with what animation they already had to pull from, especially since it was the very first computer-generated animated film. Even Sid kind of looks a little like Andy on second thought. But this also has spawned some pretty wacky theories too, including one about Andy being a clone, Andy making up the whole Toy Story franchise as one of his imaginary games, and Andy and the toys being a part of some abstract universe in the Pixar multiverse. I guess pick Pick whatever wacky theory you want on that front. Probably just trying to save money on CGI. And at number 4, Andy's dad is dead. Speaking of Andy, let's talk about a member in his family that's quite absent. His father. Now there's a theory that suggests his father passed away, and that's what prompts Andy to be so attached to his toys, particularly Woody, who, as the theory suggests, was owned by his dad. So for context, we know that Woody is a rare and pricey doll from a 50s television show called Woody's Roundup, which is why he was stolen in the second film. But think about that, Woody is in mint condition. How does Andy, who is 6 at the start of the first film, get his little grabbers on a toy like that? The theory speculates that Woody was actually owned by Andy's father, and because his father's dead, that's why Andy has such a connection to Woody. In the second Toy Story, we hear Andy's mom tell Al of Al's Toy Barn that Woody isn't for sale because he is a family possession, which only further fuels this theory. We also know that Andy's dad had polio as a kid, which had some major side effects amongst baby boomers in real life, later in life, and could have led to complications that could have been fatal for Andy's father in the long run. The name Andy on Woody's foot is his father's name potentially, Andy Sr., and it's likely that all of his childhood belongings were burnt because of polio, minus a few toys. Woody, along with Mr. Potato Head and Slinky Dog, which were 2 other toys popular in the 50s when they first came out. A writer for Toy Story did come out in 2017 to debunk that theory though, so I don't know, it seems pretty solid though. And at number 3, corpses. This one comes from Twitter from a user called Stigum3. They tweeted out, I quote, "My daughter just ruined Toy Story forever. She said if one of the toys died, Andy wouldn't know and he'd carry on playing with its corpse." Now that tweet shortly went viral and got people really riled up over the dark possibilities that theory could amount to. While there have been plenty of theories kicking around pertaining to how exactly the toys have come to life, imagine that they have a lifespan and eventually die and simply become lifeless corpses afterwards that children play with is pretty darn creepy. Hopefully that won't be a plot point in Toy Story 4. Still can't get over how the toys were almost incinerated in the third movie though, if we're being honest. Moving on to number 2, immortality. Now if our last number was too much for you to handle, you probably won't fare better with this one. Over the course of the 4 films, the toys sure have had quite the lifespan, seeing Andy grow up over the years and never aging themselves, because they are toys, obviously. Now this theory suggests that the reason why we keep getting Toy Story movies is because Woody, Buzz, and the gang can only die if they are crushed or burned. That goes for all toys. And that over time toys continue to forget their old owners and live out the same life cycle over and over and over again. Now we know that Woody, Jessie, and Bullseye all originate from the 50s and could perhaps be toys that were kept in mint condition. And if you want to go deeper on this one and believe in that big grand scheme Pixar theory, when we see Rex and Wall-E, it's not just a toy dinosaur that is the exact same model as Rex in Toy Story. That is Rex, who has lived through years and years and years witnessing humanity's demise. Oh, who doesn't love a good dose of existential dread in a movie made for kids? Me. I love that shit. And finally, in our number 1 spot, the Holocaust. This one gets real dark, friends. This one suggests that Toy Story 3 is actually one big allegory for the Holocaust. Now aside from the big burning scene, which we'll get to in a sec, there's a few things that fans have pointed out that share eerie similarities between the World War II tragedy and the Pixar Disney movie. For starters, in Toy Story 3, Woody makes a speech that some have pointed out as a parallel to a speech in The Pianist, in which Adrian Brody plays a Polish-Jewish pianist struggling to survive the war. Another piece of dialogue has alleged World War II ties as well. Buzz Lightyear suggests that the toys hide in the attic to avoid being donated, which some fans believe is a reference to Anne Frank and her story. What else? Well, the toys being sent to Sunnyside Daycare represents Jews being sent to concentration camps, where they're mistreated and locked up, which also happens in Toy Story 3. Lotso, the bear antagonist of the film, acts a lot like a dictator. And lastly, at the film's end, there's a scene with an incinerator at the town dump that pulls together this not so fun analogy. So, yeah. Kinda depressing. Alright, there we have it, friends. What other creepy Toy Story theories do you know of? Give us a shout in those comments below and ruin our childhood some more. If you guys dug this video, hit that like button, spread the love, why not subscribe, and join the Top 10 Nerd Squad. We'd love to have you stick around some more. In the meantime though, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.